You know, when a huge disease outbreak finally fades from the headlines, it's easy to think, okay, that's over, right? But really, for the scientists, the health officials, and most importantly, for the patients themselves, a whole new, super complex story is just getting started. And that story is all about the thousands, literally thousands, of biological samples collected right in the middle of the chaos. So it begs the question, right? What actually happens to all those blood samples, saliva swabs, all that stuff once the emergency is over? I mean, these samples hold incredible potential. Like, they could be the key to fighting the next pandemic. But, and this is a huge but, they also come with some serious ethical weight. Why? Because at the end of the day, they came from real people. So in this explainer, we're going to dive right into the ethics of all this. We'll cover why these samples are so important, the whole promise versus peril debate, why consent is everything, what happens when samples cross borders, and finally, the official agreements that try to keep it all in check. All right, first things first. Why do we even bother storing these samples for the long haul? I mean, sure, during an outbreak, they're used for quick diagnosis and to track how the disease is spreading. But their value, wow, it goes way beyond that initial crisis. They actually become this living resource for the future. The best way to think about it is like this. Every single sample is a book, and together they form this massive biological library. And each book, each sample, holds critical first-hand information about the pathogen. Researchers can go into this library years later, check out a sample, and unlock secrets about how a virus changes over time. And that knowledge, it leads directly to faster tests, better treatments, and even brand new vaccines. This library is, no joke, one of our absolute best defenses against whatever comes next. Okay, but this is where we hit the central problem, the real tension of this whole thing. On one side, you've got this incredible scientific potential, but on the other, you have to remember, these samples came from people. And that means storing and using them carries some very real risks, not just for the individuals, but for their entire communities. So let's really look at these two sides of the coin. The promise, I mean, it's huge. We're talking about understanding the enemy, creating the weapons to fight it, diagnostics, treatments, you name it. But the peril, it's just as big. Think about it. Your personal info could get out. The data could be used in ways you never agree to. An entire community could face stigma because of some research finding. And you could completely lose control over how a piece of your own biology is used down the road. It's heavy stuff. So how in the world do we get all that amazing promise without falling into the peril? Well, the answer starts and ends with the people. The whole system has to be built on a foundation of respect. Respect for the individuals and the communities who are giving us this incredibly valuable gift. And listen, the World Health Organization is really clear on this. There are no shortcuts. Building trust is the most important piece of the puzzle. It takes time, it means real conversations, actual consultation, and a serious commitment to making sure people are educated and empowered. This isn't just about ticking a box on a form, it's about building genuine relationships. And right at the heart of all this is a concept you've probably heard of, informed consent. But let me tell you, it is so much more than just signing a piece of paper. It's a process. It's about making sure someone truly, deeply understands what they're agreeing to, why they're being asked, and that they're saying yes completely on their own terms. No pressure, no arm twisting, nothing. So what does that actually look like in the real world? Well, it means you have to be crystal clear. People need to know exactly why their sample is being taken. They absolutely have to be told if it might be stored long-term and what kind of future research could happen with it. And maybe the most important part, they have to be given a clear, easy, no questions asked way to say, no thanks to that long-term storage, and it can't affect the medical care they're getting right now. And this isn't just a one-on-one thing. It goes way beyond the individual and brings in the whole community. You see, ethical practice demands that community leaders are actually at the table helping to make the rules. The community needs a real say in how these samples get used later on. And, this is critical, if all this research leads to some amazing new drug or vaccine, you better believe there has to be a guarantee that the community that made it all possible gets fair access to it. Okay, now let's zoom out a bit. Let's look at the global picture. A lot of the time, these outbreaks happen in countries that don't have a ton of high-tech labs. So to do the kind of advanced research we need, those samples often have to be sent across borders to other countries. And this isn't just for convenience, by the way. It's an absolute necessity. The kind of super specialized tech you need to, say, map out a virus's entire genetic code, that might only exist in a few labs on the entire planet. When you're fighting a global threat, you need global teamwork, and that means sharing these incredibly precious resources. But you can't just ship samples around willy-nilly. This kind of sharing has to have super strict ethical guardrails. There needs to be a clear system in place so everybody knows the rules of the road. People from the home country, the country of origin, have to be part of the decision-making process. And here's the long-term vision. We need to be actively helping that country build up its own labs and expertise so that one day they can do more of this critical research right there at home. Okay, so how do you actually enforce all these rules across borders? Well, that's where this really important legal tool comes in. It's called a Material Transfer Agreement, or MTA for short. And you can think of it as the official rulebook, the thing that takes all these nice ethical ideas and turns them into a legally binding contract. A good, solid MTA really has to cover all the bases. It has to spell out exactly why the sample is being moved. It has to certify that, yes, proper informed consent was obtained. It's got to lay out strict rules for keeping the data private and the sample secure. It makes sure the home country gets credit in any research papers. And it locks in that all-important promise to share the benefits with the community that made it all possible in the first place. And that really brings us full circle, back to the fundamental challenge here. This isn't just some scientific puzzle or logistical headache. At its core, it's a human challenge. So how do we build a system of true global trust? A system that lets us speed up the science we desperately need to protect ourselves, while at the same time fiercely protecting the dignity, the rights, and the trust of every single person who makes that science possible. That's the tightrope we have to walk, and it's a balance we absolutely have to get right.